lonely. I can fix that.
The 9,000th circle of hell is known as the strongest. It is the place where the strongest demons gather, battling each other endlessly for eternity. The sky glows blood red and flames scorch the burnt soil. The battles raging on are not for the title of the strongest. No, that title has been taken for 10 millennia. Hell, which had been divided forever under the rule of the 7 great demons, was united by one man. The reason that all demons are united, the true Lord, the great King. A dark-haired young man sat on a magnificent throne built from the bleached bones of the 7 great demons. Though he sat on the throne with his eyes closed, the aura he emanated could blow anyone away. Kneeling in rows in front of him were thousands of demons who were shaking in fear of his massive power. One of these demons slowly began to inch towards the great king. With the body of a hulking beast covered head to toe in crimson fur, it stood 5 meters tall on 4 legs. His body was solid, almost as if carved from stone, with a single horn atop his head. Numerous sharp teeth protruded from the bottom of his mouth, and massive bat wings loomed on either side. This was a typical appearance of the demonic forces. A representative of the demonic forces bent down on one knee before the king. "Oh, my king, the Palak." It was once said that no one could rule the 9,000th circle of hell but him, yet now he knelt down in terror in front of a young man. Anyone would be frightened looking at the uncommon, obedient stance the Palak was in. However, all the demons present here understood the fear of the great. The Lord. 10,000 years ago, a man with the power of the Devourer descended into hell. This man had immediately begun exterminating demons one by one. He'd started with the first 1,000th circle of hell and eventually reached the 9,000th circle. Devouring demons along the way, he became stronger and stronger, becoming, in the end, the most powerful lord. Thousands, no, tens of thousands of demons had been absorbed by his power of the Devourer, and even the 7 great demons who'd never overcome one another in strength, fell to their knees before him. The reason for the unification of all demons, a terrible monster, devouring them one after another. Even Palak, who didn't know fear, couldn't help shaking in terror. "Why would you go back? Don't you already have everything there is in hell?" Palak mumbled with fear, barely opening his mouth. The man's closed eyes opened a little and more energy began to flow from him. "I have everything. What do I have?" The Palak didn't say anything. The young king's face was distorted as he spoke. To have something, there must be something in the first place. "Tell me, what have we got?" There was accusation in his voice that was slowly turning into anger. "There's no food, no entertainment. What in this damn place is there that I can possibly have? The wasteland, the bloody sky, and the unquenchable tongues of flame, there's nothing in the 9,000th circle of hell but that." When he heard that, Palak rounded his eyes. "So you're hungry? I've prepared something special for you. Hey, guys, bring it in." "Yes, sir." The demons, following orders, brought in a giant plate. On it, covered in dark, almost black blood, laid the head of a demon. "He is the last demon of their kind. Your Majesty, though it is a modest gift, it expresses our loyalty, please do not refuse," said Palak. The spectacle presented to Kong Yu looked disgusting, causing his face to become even more distorted in anger, and he blurted out. "Unintelligent bunch, that's not what I want." He threw the plate on the ground, and it flew away with a crackle. With his hands clenched firmly in fists, the young man stepped forward. I don't want to eat this disgusting-looking and tasteless food. His hands trembled. The indignation swallowed him up so much that his voice began to break down. "Kimchi jjigae, I want a kimchi jjigae. Kimchi jjigae, it's my true desire. Food filled with blood and meat. TN. Demons take it verbatim, blood and meat. And this is https://goo.gl/i88tmg, kimchi soup. No, idiots, that's not it." Kong Yu clenched his fists even harder and screamed. It was a red dish with meat, but not at all what demons imagined. Palak looked at Kong Yu with eyes full of devotion. "Whose head is it to be made of? Or probably from the entrails. Just say the word, and I'll cook it all, no matter how difficult it is." "Kimchi jjigae is something else," Kong Yu said in a complaining voice. For demons, eating was nothing more than devouring the defeated loser. "And you said you didn't have enough entertainment. Indeed, you have already killed all the strongest. As was expected of the Lord of bloodshed and massacre. I want to read a manhwa or a novel." Palak, dissatisfied, punch the ground, with all his power. Under this pressure, a hole was formed in the ground. I am so weak that I can't please you, please, kill me. Listen to me, please. Kong Yu has returned to his throne in despair. At least I need a woman. Yes, at least a woman. A woman. We have Lilith. Lilith, the succubus queen, the first beauty of hell. One of the demons lined up stepped forward and inquired, will Lilith's heart not be enough? Her voice was strange enough, and her many tentacles were already wrapped around the hands of the young lord. Her face with 18 eyes blocked everything. The king was silent. 18 eyes. There were dozens of tentacles moving by themselves. A tongue that looked like a snake. She was called an incredible beauty. But Kong Yu's head hurt and he put his hand to his forehead. Succubus. Why a succubus? It didn't look as he had imagined. After all, a succubus that eats other people's sexual energy should at least be beautiful. Yet she looked even worse than Palak himself. And she wasn't the only one. This was what all hell's succubi looked like. Tonight I will come to His Majesty's bedroom. No, don't come. Oh, you must be embarrassed. You can't do this because you're the king of the 9,000th circle of hell. Just don't come. Oh, how sweet. You shouldn't be so modest. I'll be with you my whole life. I beg you, disappear. Kong Yu tilted his head down and covered his face with his hands. He was not the kind of person who only looks at someone's appearance in love. On the contrary, he truly believed that if he fell in love, appearance would not play a big role. However, not to this extent. The problem wasn't that she was scary. Her appearance just didn't fit human aesthetic standards in any way. At all. To Earth, Kong Yu thought strongly about going back to Earth. Despite the servants' desperate attempts to persuade him to stay, his decision was firm. Contrary to their intentions, their pleading only strengthened his desire to return. I'm going back. A few days before, he had finished the last mighty demon, which completed his preparations. Finally, it's time to be compensated for 10,000 years of torment. Get ready, Your Majesty. Palak, catching the Lord's steadfastness, humbly bowed his head. It's His Majesty's choice. He had sworn allegiance and could do nothing but follow the king's wishes. Palak, do I have to do it again? I'm sorry. Palak nodded politely and went to the servants to gather the necessary items. The weapons of the 7 great demons they fought were what had to be prepared. It is said that the power contained in these weapons is so great, it could form a gap in space and time. Recently, by consuming the last of the strongest, Kong Yu had received the last weapon. And now, all of them were lying before him, ready for use. The preparation is complete. Excellent. Kong Yu stood up from the throne and walked slowly towards the 7 trophies, each adorned in different shapes and colors. There were 7 of them, and they comprised the power of the whole 9,000 circles of hell. The weapons complemented each other perfectly in both power and appearance. If the king put all the energy that he had absorbed into these weapons, he really would be capable of opening a time portal. Ha! Kong Yu quietly took in a deep breath. He had waited so long for this moment, the chance to finally return to Earth, that he seemed to have lost his sense of reality. At last, he'd finally be able to go home. An unbelievable amount of energy from Kong Yu's body began to flow into his weapon. The power of a devourer that had grown over tens, hundreds, thousands of years. It was no exaggeration to say that even the 9,000th circle itself had already been absorbed by the king. His power was just that great. MANHWA. pp. In short, the power of Lord Pandemonium. This was the word used to describe the part inside Kong Yu that contained a mass of great power. And now, the flow of MANHWA perfectly complemented the weapons of the 7 great demons. In an instant, there was a split in space, and a black passageway appeared before his eyes. I can finally return to Earth. The vivid remnants of his memories on Earth came to mind at that very moment. Even after 10,000 years, he had not forgotten his hometown. In that place, there was no family nor woman waiting for him. Even so, even if my town is small, it's better than being here, in a place with no food or entertainment. He was willing to do anything to get out of this place that was full of bloodshed and murder. So, it's necessary to set the right time. Kong Yu didn't want to move now. After all, the face of the earth could have changed enormously in 10,000 years. So much so, that his beloved Kimchi Jjigae may no longer be there either. An earth without Kimchi Jjigae was unimaginable. Just thinking of it caused goosebumps to rise all over his body. Kong Yu decided to travel back to the time before he first went to hell. Well, I will go now. King. Palak bowed his head in despair, for he knew the Lord's will was firm. From all of Lilith's 18 eyes, tears resembling chicken droppings were pouring out. She began to speak. Are you really going to leave me? Don't weep. It looks awful. So terrible that maybe one day, her crying image will appear in a horror film. She seemed to have misunderstood the Lord's words, for her tentacles trembled slightly, and she bawled. Oh, what kind words? It seems my heart is torn apart by your love. And when she finished speaking, one of the tentacles closest to her heart burst, and pus began to gush out of it. Oh, my God. Oh, my king. Oh, my love. Don't come near me. Lilith wants to go with the king, too. Get lost. Looking at Lilith approaching while oozing with pus, Kong Yu hurried to the open portal without a trace of hesitation. Kong Yu, no matter what happens, Lilith will follow you. Her screams gradually faded as his consciousness was enveloped by an unusual feeling. May our paths never cross, he showed Lilith his middle finger. No, not only to her, but to all the agony he had endured in the past 10,000 years. This isn't easy, Kong Yu thought as he tried to control time travel. Time controls life, so it was difficult to manipulate. Kong Yu set the time as close as possible to before he first went to hell. An error of 10 to 20 years would not matter. After all, he was born an orphan, so he had nothing to change in the past and has no expectations for a better future. The only thing that mattered was getting back to the earth he remembered. With the time settings now established, an unknown force began to pull him deep into the dark tunnel. Unable to resist, he calmly closed his eyes and relied on the force that was dragging him. Error of access to the nucleus. Security system activated. Closing square bracket. Error. Closing square bracket. Your power is too great. Closing square bracket. All forces are focused on defending the kernel. The system is now in reboot mode. Closing square bracket. Error. A mistake. Closing square bracket. Your power is too great. There is no way to fix the defect. Closing square bracket. It is impossible to fix the defect. Sealing has now commenced. Closing square bracket. There is a mistake. There is a mistake. Closing square bracket. Your power is too great. There is no way to fix the defect. Closing square bracket. It is impossible to fix the defect. Sealing has now commenced. Closing square bracket. What's that sound? He wondered. The completely unnatural voice could be heard from all over the place. However, he was unable to ponder more about it. His consciousness, like everything else around him, became obscured. His body was in such great pain that he could hardly move his fingers. Kong Yu moaned in pain as he gathered his strength and opened his eyes. Where am I? The first thing he saw was a thick forest. The sun's rays penetrated through the dense foliage of the trees, tickling the cheeks of the young man. Kong Yu took a deep breath and forced himself to get up. A sharp pain shot across his body and spread to his head. Okay, first I should do a self-diagnosis. He had to make sure that nothing irreparable had happened to his body. Status information downloading. What? As soon as he had thought about checking his physical state, a blue panel appeared before his eyes. His eyes widened in amazement, small wrinkles appearing on his forehead, after which he turned his attention to the status window. Status window. Player name. Kong Yu. Level 1. Stage 1 Awakening. Level 1 Feature. The Power of the Devourer. Rating. Special skills are currently sealed. Skills. None. Strength. 8. Vitality. 9. Physical ability. 7. Mariac. 0. Mana that humans use. Magi. 12. Intellect. 8. Wisdom. 7. What the hell is this? His condition board looked exactly like it did when he had first arrived in hell. Kong Yu's face was distorted in confusion. He couldn't understand why his status was like that. Are you saying that the powers of all those monsters, which I ate, are sealed? The power of a devourer. A unique power that had allowed him to survive in hell, the power with which he was able to become the strongest overlord. And now he is told that his MANHWA, his power and all his abilities are sealed. He was panicked, horrified that the power he had accumulated for 10,000 years was no longer within his control. Kong Yu took a deep breath and tried to calm down. Panic and rejection of reality would only make the situation worse. He understood that very well. Concentrate, he murmured to himself. First, you need to know about your condition. Kong Yu tried to summon MANHWA, the force he had accumulated over tens, hundreds, thousands of years, from devouring demons. I can't feel it, or rather, thanks to his skillful concentration, he was able to feel MANHWA, but it was so miserably weak that the young man deemed it to be insignificant. Now he could compare the strength of that power not to infinity, but rather to dust. If this is how it is, it will be quite difficult to use any abilities. Kong Yu was obviously annoyed with this realization. Among the demons, he had been considered the most powerful, thanks to the devourer power. Thanks to it, he could devour those who also possessed special powers. There were 666 such special demons that he'd eaten. Among them were the 7 great demons, after consuming which, he learned how to use their powers. Each of the powers is unique, but to use them you need to have a certain amount of energy. The energy that he currently possessed was not enough to use the powers. In the current situation, it will be difficult to use the blade as well. The power the demon Shabnik previously owned was called the blade power. It was an ability that summoned a sword from the body. It's not enough. With sufficient energy, the blade could be skillfully used, but at this moment, it was almost impossible. Kong Yu focused on his left hand and called for the blade power. And after a moment, a sharp, black blade was drawn out from the back of his hand. The young man felt the energy from his body flow into the sword. It will be hard to get used to this. His powers, which had previously been approaching infinity, giving infinite possibilities, were now like a puddle of water at the bottom of a dried-up ocean. The realization of this fact was depressing. But the status window reflected his reality. For whatever reason his powers were sealed remained a mystery, but it was clear that his MANHWA was almost at 0. What injustice! He recalled the moment when the status window suddenly appeared with the details of his characteristics. Did I enter the game? Kong Yu suddenly wondered if he had gotten back to Earth. Kick, kick, a nasty rattle of metal reached his ears, and he turned to where the sound was coming from. Heh heh heh. He soon realized the source of the sounds and tensed up. They were short, their height just reaching the young man's chest, with skin and sharp teeth of a light green shade. They looked exactly like filthy creatures from the first 1000th circle of hell. As far as Kong Yu knew, there had never been such creatures on Earth. Is this not the Earth? He murmured in a tone full of despair. Kong Yu couldn't even laugh at the fact that after 10,000 years of preparation, he was still unable to get back to Earth. Kia! The large crowd of ugly-looking monsters, shrieking gleefully, threw themselves at him. What went wrong? The open passage had definitely been leading to Earth. Yet the feelings were exactly the same as 10,000 years ago on his way to hell. The situation didn't add up. Kong Yu was desperate for answers. Kia ya ya! The monsters shouted even louder and rushed towards Kong Yu, pointing their crooked swords at him. Kong Yu used his black dagger to fight them off. Within moments, the monster's hands had fallen to the ground. After successfully defending himself by injuring his opponents, he sat on the ground to inspect his sword. Although almost all of his MANHWA was sealed, he was still the great ruler of the 9,000 circles of hell. It was easy to handle such insignificant opponents, even with only a sword. I'll deal with these guys first. With monsters screaming wildly and attacking from all sides, he did not have time for reflection at the moment. Kong Yu was more relaxed than ever. He looked at the monsters. And anger with the aggression of a predator began to rise inside him. The monsters also felt his anger. Their legs began to fail them. There seemed to be 8 of them. If MANHWA was available, he wouldn't even have to move. He would have just brought them down with the help of the power. However, things were different now. How unusual it is, having to move again. He pushed his foot off the ground, instantly deflecting the monsters' attacks. Then, he sliced off their heads. The experience accumulated by thousands of years in countless wars had helped him turn the crowd of monsters into a pile of cold corpses. Ding. Closing square bracket. Level E goblin successfully murdered. Closing square bracket. Experience points increased. Closing square bracket. Level increased by 3. Closing square bracket. I leveled up. By killing the monsters that attacked him, or more precisely goblins, the status window had appeared again. Kong Yu confirmed that the level really had increased by 3 points. So had his energy per unit. And it wasn't just an increase in numbers, Kong Yu could feel that his body had become stronger. It doesn't matter now, raising the level, raising the energy, it doesn't matter at all right now. I need to find out what this place is, whether it's Earth or not. At the very least, I need to know if there are people living here. Oh, it would have been a lot easier with the powers of Alec. He smiled involuntarily as he remembered the power to fly.
No bitches. No bitches. No bitches. Hmm.